Well, wouldn't you know it, we're already in the time of year that people are starting to go a little bit on high alert for Nintendo presentations, specifically a Nintendo Direct, an Indie World presentation, maybe even a Pokemon Presents. And there's some new information coming out that's being circulated online. This is from a credible individual, although as with many leakers' track records, things are not perfect with them, but they have definitely gotten a handful of things correct, especially around some Nintendo Direct timing and some internal reports that, to be fair, you can't entirely prove internal reports are a thing, like the supposed internal shift of Nintendo launching their next gen hardware. Instead of it being 2024, it got moved to early 2025. So always best to err on the side of caution with your own personal expectations, but we do have some new information to discuss from a user by the name of PH Brazil, who you may or may not be familiar with. They're most notably known for being the one to break the story that the Switch 2 was internally shifted to 2025, and shortly after we saw them break out that story, we saw VGC, Eurogamer, Bloomberg, very credible names in the gaming industry, all kind of corroborate the same things that they were hearing from their own individual sources. So yeah, the person seems to be connected within the industry. They've also gotten some exact dates right for the Nintendo Direct, but the asterisk is that they also thought that we would get a Nintendo Direct in April of this year, and we now know, of course, that did not happen, and rather we saw that June presentation. So keep all of that in mind. But the long and short of what's being claimed here actually ties to Family Boards, and I'm not going to show the exact screenshots just because Family Boards is, when there's hidden posts on there, you're not supposed to share them, but you get the idea of what's being suggested here. PH Brazil claims that Indie World is happening in September, while hinting a Nintendo Direct will be held soon. Universal Nintendo then has this write-up on the matter where it says, influencer and journalist PH Brazil, through messages on Family Boards forum, suggested that Nintendo plans to change the display of its traditional presentation of independent games in the second half of the year. According to him, instead of being broadcast during the month of August, the next Indie World should take place sometime during the month of September. This broadcast usually precedes some of the gaming events that are scheduled for the second half, including PAX, German Gamescom, and Tokyo Game Show 2024. It would be an interesting schedule change, not only because of the choice for this event itself, but also because the fact that Nintendo usually holds Nintendo Direct broadcasts during the month of September. For now, Nintendo does not have any public disclosure of events focused on game announcements for this or the next few months. Stay tuned. Now, one point I really want to drive home in this video is that, yes, it's cool. We're probably going to get an Indie World August or September. That's not really too important to me, whether it happens this month or next month. And Indie Worlds are cool for what they are, but definitely not anywhere near the levels of hype that you get for something like a mainline Nintendo Direct. But even if we are to believe the claims of PH Brazil that a Nintendo Direct is coming soon, we do not know that it will be a mainline general Nintendo Direct. You may have remembered me going on record previously in videos. I'm kind of setting my expectations on the lower side of seeing a mainline Direct for this year in 2024 as we close out the year, because of the unique situation we're in with Nintendo and them transitioning to new hardware, likely being revealed as soon as this year. And I'm actually more banking on a reveal trailer for the next Nintendo Switch console, or the next gen console, the successor to the Switch, than I am necessarily a full mainline presentation. What does happen, however, frequently in the month of August, if you look at the last couple years, and at least generally once per calendar year throughout the Nintendo Switch's life cycle, is a game-specific focused Direct. And we have had, again, 2 years, the most recent years, having game-specific Directs happening in the month of August, and that is definitely a possibility at what PH Brazil is hinting at. Or you have the possibility of something like a Nintendo Direct Mini, where there's some new first-party announcements, but not the major stuff, and I could maybe see Nintendo holding some kind of showcase like that to outline some of their games. But while my theory could be wrong, it did seem to me like in the June Direct that they were outlining more of the late year games from a third party and first party perspective. Like, for example, I really felt like we would have learned about Donkey Kong Country Returns HD in a September Nintendo Direct, considering it's a January title for Nintendo and it's just a simple HD port. Like, they definitely revealed it, I guess, maybe a little bit sooner than sometimes they would have if you look at when Nintendo revealed to ultimately launching things. Like, we didn't know about Echoes of Wisdom, and that game is out in September, but a more simple HD Donkey Kong project that's coming over, we know about all the way back in June when it doesn't launch until January. It seemed to me like Nintendo somewhat set themselves up to ride through the rest of this year and not really have to have another presentation. That said, is essentially a flawless track record with, if you look in the past, Nintendo's always held some kind of presentation in September when it comes to like a mainline direct, and we really haven't had them miss that in the Nintendo Switch's generation. So there is a high likelihood if you're going off of just the past, but I argue that this year you can't just look at their typical cycle of things, because I would have said the same thing about a February Nintendo Direct being a lock and something we can always take to the bank and expect. But what did we get? We got a partner showcase, and that's a very real possibility for this as well. It might not be a Direct Mini, it literally could be a Nintendo Direct partner showcase where Nintendo has obligations to their publishers to hold these showcases for their games, and that's what we see them do from a third-party perspective, but not have any kind of major first-party announcements. Although even if we get a partner showcase, we did see Nintendo prove that they can actually technically reveal a first-party game at those presentations, as we closed out that February Direct with Endless Ocean Luminous, which is technically a Nintendo published title. So different possibilities are on the table here. In terms of the game-specific direct, I would definitely expect it to be based around Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, if there is one at all. Maybe Mario and Luigi Brothership gets some more focus, as that's Nintendo's big holiday title at this point, but I honestly feel like Zelda's going to be kind of the big 2024 game for a lot of Nintendo Switch owners, and Mario Luigi Brothership will be a close second. And really, from a sales perspective, it's probably going to be Mario Party Jamboree, or Super Mario Party Jamboree rather. That's kind of what I'm expecting to win the trophy in terms of the best-selling game in 2024 when it comes to new releases. I think that will move really solid units, but Nintendo's probably not going to do a game-specific direct for a Mario Party. They might, though, for a Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom release. And the only thing that kind of pokes a hole in the idea of that potentially happening for me is that last trailer they released, comboed with the first look we had at the game. Like, we already have essentially 11 plus minutes of a deep dive explanation of what the game is, and I don't know how much more Nintendo really wants to reveal outside of the hype trailers that show some story moments and get you a little bit more invested in what's going on from a narrative perspective. Like, how much more do they really need to show us about that game? And a game specific direct, you would expect 20 plus minutes of focus on just that one title, and I don't know that Nintendo needs to deep dive it that much. So that last trailer that we got from Nintendo kind of makes me feel a little bit less confident that we would see a game specific Zelda direct. Partner showcase, though, that could definitely happen in the month of August instead of September, and maybe we see the Indie World take place in September. But I'm on the lower side of expectations still about seeing direct in August. PH Brazil does have a decent track record, but sometimes the timing is off with things. And if you're talking about things you're hearing from developers on a smaller scale, you know, Nintendo doesn't have to fully pull back the curtain for them. They can give them a general window of when to have their trailer ready to submit to them by, and that's maybe what they are going off of with this type of reporting. So you really do just have to stay tuned. I certainly hope we get some surprise game announcements for the last portion of 2024. Like, I absolutely would love to see Metroid Prime 2 and 3 shadow dropped at the next Nintendo Direct presentation. I kind of only feel like that will happen if we do get a mainline Direct. Nate the Hate has again been talking about the likelihood of those games coming over, and also F-Zero GX. Like, something seems to be going on with F-Zero, or not F-Zero GX, but rather just F-Zero the franchise on the Nintendo Switch, not necessarily the successor platform. So that seems like more or less a lock. Fire Emblem remake being talked about for a super long time. Like, there's definitely some titles that you could expect Nintendo to throw out in a September presentation. So it's not that it won't happen, it's just that I am not personally setting my expectations near as high as I would in other years. But we also have things like, you know, Nintendo Switch Online subscriptions come due for a lot of people in terms of the annual renewal in September and October rather, because that's when the expansion pack originally launched. So there is a chance that Nintendo wants to go all out in a Nintendo Switch Online direction at some of these directs and give us either a new system or give us a future roadmap of the games that are coming, all the big heavy hitters, because they want to keep people plugged in and make sure they're renewing the subscription for that service. So it's kind of a coin toss for me. I do think that in the month of August, we will likely see a Pokemon Presents. I think that that's going to be more or less a lock. That's historically happened in recent years in August, and I think there's no reason to expect it not to happen this year. Hopefully a gameplay look at Legend ZA, like we talked about that in a video recently, which thank you guys for all the support on that video. Did incredibly well. Did not expect that to blow up the way that it did, but lots of Pokemon fans want to know what's going on with Pokemon games and their releases, because it seems like Game Freak's finally taking the development time that's needed to polish these things and have like a different release schedule than just trying to throw out something mainline Pokemon once per calendar year like they were before. So that's very exciting to see, and we might get an update pretty soon from the Pokemon Company in terms of a Pokemon Presents. So there's going to be announcements coming soon one way or another. Let me know in the comments down below what you're personally expecting from a direct presentation. Do you think partner direct's more likely? Do you think that it's going to happen in the month of August, like the sooner rather than later claim from PH Brazil? Or are you more in the mindset that we will see Nintendo hold their traditional mainline direct in September, but just in that same general time frame that we see them go? Or do you think that it's less likely to get a mainline direct, but more likely to get something like a game specific direct? And what game is that focused around? Are we thinking Echoes of Wisdom, or maybe something else that Nintendo wants to promote? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.